There's a famous story about St. Martin of Tours when he was a soldier in France. And it was probably this time of year, and it was a cold day. And he was riding on his horse, and he's at the gates of the city, and it was no surprise. He saw a poor man there, a beggar, someone who didn't have a job, maybe didn't even have a place to stay. And he was shivering there. And Martin saw him shivering. Martin noticed him, and he stopped. And we don't know what he was thinking necessarily, but we know what he did. He saw that man who was shivering. He saw that he had his own military cloak. He was very warm. He was comfortable, even riding on the horse. And so what he did is he took his sword and he cut that cloak in half and gave half of it to that beggar. The man was just shivering, who no doubt would be very grateful to have anything that warmed him up. And Martin probably made do with half a cloak. He probably was a little cold too, but it wasn't probably a big deal for him. Why is that story remembered for almost 1,600 years? Because it tells us something about what Jesus wants every one of us to do. Now, Martin was a soldier. He had been studying to become a Catholic, but he wasn't a Catholic yet. He wasn't a Christian. He wasn't baptized. He'd been taking classes, almost like ourselves, learning about the Catholic faith. But that moment, that experience stayed with him, and it was repeated over and over because the second part of that story is that night when Martin went to go to bed in probably a warm, comfortable place. He had a dream. And in that dream, the man he saw begging at the gate of the city of Amiens in northern France, in his dream, the man was Jesus. And Martin realized there that Jesus was not only in that shivering man, but he's in every person. And was inviting him to share what he had. And so for Martin, it made a change in life. He was a soldier for the emperor. He was part of the royal guard. He got special treatment. He's one of the elite soldiers. And he decided to quit. He said, I'm going to change my life. I'm not going to do this any longer. And in fact, because he decided to quit, he was thrown in prison. They said, you can't do that. You can't just leave. You got to get back to what you're doing. And he didn't. And eventually he was let go of prison. And then over time, he discovered what Jesus wanted him to do. First it was he loved praying. And so the time he could pray alone was really precious. In fact, he started the first monastery in France. First one. And then eventually the people liked him so much in the area there, they made him a bishop of Tours in southern France. And throughout his life, he didn't forget the man who was shivering at the gate of the city. This morning, as we celebrate his feast, we should be thanking God, first of all, for all soldiers. It's Veterans Day. We should be grateful for all those who have protected our country, protected people in other countries, that they could be safe. But we should also be aware what Martin teaches us, to notice who needs help. Now, it was pretty obvious this man shivering at the gate of the city needed help. But how many people passed by and didn't notice him? Did they see him? Oh, I imagine. But they just passed him by. What didn't happen was they didn't reflect on it. Say, what could I do? And for us as seventh graders, what can I do? What difference can I make in my faith? God is inviting every one of us to discover that. Because who are the people in our lives that we overlook? Here in our classrooms, who do we not notice really needs extra attention, extra help, extra consideration? Who of us and any of our teams in what we play, volleyball or basketball, whatever it might be, is there someone there that we overlook? Is there someone in our family who in some ways maybe not real easy to get along with, who needs extra attention? Is there somebody in our neighborhood? The list goes on. Every one of us, including Father Dan, needs to notice what Jesus wants us to see, because Jesus was in that begging man. That's why he came to Martin in the dream there, because he wanted Martin to make sure he realized that. And for you and me, as Catholics and as Christians, we are called to notice what other people see but don't realize, to reflect and decide, what can we do? What can I do? This is what we come every day to pray for. The Holy Spirit will open our eyes, our minds, and our hearts to discover what we should do. And as a result, as Jesus says in the Gospel, someday, after you and I die, the question Jesus is going to ask us, did you notice me? Did you do something when I needed help in that person? Or were you just thinking about yourselves?